Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to head over to an undisclosed location and take a look at this new acquisition, an oak barrel. Now I call it a barrel, but take a look at this photograph. It is big. So we're going to head over there, have a look at the barrel and work out what we're going to do with it. Why have I bought it? Well, here it is. Check out this oak barrel, French oak wine barrel. Massive, look at the size of this. 1.8 to 2 meters in diameter. That's what, 6 foot and so many inches. It's huge and really heavy. Now I managed to pick this up really luckily from a garden very close to my place, about 20 minutes drive away. Took quite some effort to get it onto a trailer and move it into this location so I can decide what to do with it. It's big. It's heavy. I've estimated the weight around about 580 kilos in wet timber, maybe 450 once it's dried out. So it's really awkward and heavy to move. Now what am I going to do with this? I do have several options. The reason I was looking for something like this was to use as a decorative surround around the plastic water butt at the house. But it's too good. The oak is beautiful. I really don't think I should be using this timber for something of that nature. It's going to be awkward to get in place and eventually it will rot. Such a waste for this beautiful timber. So what else could I do with it? Well, I did think to cut it in half and make a spar out of it. Now that's not a bad idea. This would make a beautiful rustic looking spar. The problem, look at the base of this. It really is quite warped. I mean, it's actually deflected some 6 inches, 150 millimeters. It's never going to be watertight again. These timbers have bowed and warped far too much. The other end, of course, has got a big hole in it where you would put the wine in, and so that's not suitable as a spar either. So we can't really use it as a spar. So we're left with another option, and that's to break it up. That makes it much easier to move, and then use the timbers for some project work. Now, one of the projects I've got in mind is flooring in the cabin. Really was looking out for some oak to use as flooring, and this might be the candidate. If the timbers are particularly warped, I'll use some small pieces and create a parquet floor, and if the timbers are particularly straight, then I'll use them as strip flooring. Maybe, I'm not sure, but what I do know is that today it can't stay here, so I've got to get it apart and get the timbers to dry out. Okay, let's get some tools and see if we can get this thing into pieces. It's got quite a thick coating of wax sealer on the top. You can see here where I've started to flake it off. It's really quite thick and in places just coming off in big chunks. I'll need to spend some time just flaking it all off to uncover the grain underneath. You can see better here on the end grain just how close those growth rings are, making it a slow grown and very stable timber. Right, that's all the loose stuff off. So a barrel of this size. Now when I say a barrel of this size, this is about 480 litres in terms of its storage capacity. Now that doesn't make it a barrel. Each different size of container built in this traditional technique has a different name. And this one happens to be a buttload. This is a butt of wine. It contains a buttload of wine, or at least it would have done. For me, it's containing a buttload of oak. All right. What we need to do now is remove these steel loops. Now these would have been manufactured by rolled steel, riveted together to the correct diameter, and then hammered over these timber staves in order to hold them all together. The barrel is tapered, bigger at this end, smaller at this end. So the theory is that these loops should come off the barrel in that direction. Whether we can get them to loosen up, I don't know. Let's give it a go. All right, so these metal loops are actually held in tension onto the staves, the timber pieces of the barrel, probably put on there with the barrel really dry, so it's at its smallest measurement, and these are then hammered in place, and as the timber expands, absorbing moisture from the wine and atmosphere, then they get tighter and tighter. So we're going to have to hit it really quite hard in order to get them to move, I think. Even bigger tool. Okay, that's the first one off. Well, it's moving slowly. This is too sharp. Okay, the problem with this bolster chisel is it just digs in. I need a blunt tool. Let's give this one a go. We'll use this as a drift against this hammer. Now you should never hit two hammer faces together, but I made this one. I know it's not hardened. And another tool, this time a large Allen key, and if that doesn't work, a large diameter punch. Okay, there is a better way to do this. Well, I say better, I mean quicker. If I cut these bands, it'll be easier to get them around my water butt when I come to install them, because I will be reusing this around the water butt at home when I get some cedar to use as staves. Cutting them will be faster. Hello. Cutting them will be faster. What? Come here. What? Eh? I'll persevere for 10 more minutes and then I think go and find some way of cutting these. You need to move, your ears will get hurt. That's not quite what I meant when I said move. Hey? You're in the way. Can you move? What about if I walk over there? Will you follow me? You will? Come on then. You're kinda in the firing line. Thank you. Definitely time to reassess. I'm likely to dent the oak and I don't want to do that. And the steel rings are probably going to need to be cut in order to pass them over my plastic water storage tank. I think the decision has to be to cut these straps off so that the barrel just falls apart. Else I'll be here all day. I don't know why I'm so reluctant to cut these straps. Because I haven't got an angle grinder. All right, yet another tool. Now, not the ideal tool for this job, a junior hacksaw, but it's all I've got right here. So let's give this 5 minutes work. Okay, I know, that wasn't 5 minutes work, but it's too hard to do with this. Of course it is. Look at the size of the thing. An angle grinder is going to be great. I'm going to be able to re-weld the bands back together, and so it's almost as though it would never have been cut. I don't know why I'm wasting my time trying all these other techniques. Let's just get straight down to business, go and get the angle grinder and get it cut. Right, back on the job. Stop meowing! Right, back on the job. And I've just counted, I've tried 9 different tools and I really should have just jumped straight to number 10. Of course, the angle grinder. I've got my ear protection. Unfortunately, I don't have any safety glasses, so it's going to be safety squints on this one. The next safety thing I need to consider, if I cut all of these steel loops off, there's a possibility that it just folds like a pack of cards. I don't think there's anything actually holding the staves and the top and the bottom together. We won't know till I start cutting, so I'm going to cut all but the very last one and then attempt to ease some of these stays free. Remembering it's smaller at the top than it is at the bottom, so if I leave the bottom loop in place, the staves ought to spring out and be able to be removed, unless they're stuck to each other. I guess we'll find out. Okay, let's get this set up. Okay, now most of those bands are off. We can see these timbers are actually quite loose. So there's nothing holding them together other than tension. A lot of tension, as we've seen. Okay, I think it's close to collapse. Let's have a little tickle on the other end. It's not coming apart. You know, if I can knock one of these timbers forwards out of its loop, that'll free up the tension. Ah, I can't. The top and the bottom are inside a rabbet or a rebate, so they won't push forwards. I could chisel it out. Right, so here's the issue. I've got a really bowed base to this barrel, and the base and the top are both held into these staves by a rebate joint, and you'll see that once we get it apart. I want to push one of these staves forward to release the tension on the last ring, and I can't do that because of the rebate. So I'm just going to chisel out this side of the rebate so it can be pushed forward. I'm using a bolster chisel, which is designed for concrete and bricks, and it's not sharp, but let's see how well it does. Okay, we'll just try and push this one forwards. Success! Wow, terribly successful, I think. An absolute mess of a pile, but it's down and nobody got injured. This time. Well, here it is. Look at this pile. It's going to take some time to stack this and measure it and get it all sorted out, but take a look how they were held together. Just down on the sides here, you can see they were actually doweled. I guess that helped in the initial assembly before the loops were hammered in place. Okay, I'm going to stack it now outdoors, under cover, with some dunnage strips in between each row, just to get some ventilation. And after a week or two, once it's had some air drying outside, I'll move it indoors to the garage and let it dry there for a good period of time. That's all the oak. Now, just for the steel bands. Well, after a quick tidy up, we get the chance to see just how much material we've got, and take a look at this. You know, I've calculated by the time I've deep cut this for flooring, we should have enough to cover around 30 square meters. That's 320 square foot. Right, so I brought a small sample of the oak barrel here into work just so I can process the material and take a look to see if it's going to be suitable for the flooring. You can see it's quite a thick piece of material here. I'm going to deep cut it through the center, dock the ends off so it's square, probably create 3, 4 or 5 small floor tiles. I'm looking at how thick the material is after I process it, the quality of the grain and the colour of the finish. Now I'm using the table saw to cut the plank in half, so I've got 2 equal thickness, thinner pieces of material. And then just a couple of passes through the thicknesser just to get them uniform thickness and smooth on both sides. Then a final pass through the table saw just to parallel up the 2 edges or 2 sides, and onto the drop saw or combination miter saw to dock the ends and just chop them up into manageable small scale tiles. And to finish off on the belt sander or linishing belt, just beveling up the edges here of each of these tiles. Obviously when I use this for flooring, there's going to be hundreds if not thousands of these tiles, but it's an important stage nonetheless. Right, here we are back in my workshop, the back of the van. I really need to build a garage and workshop. I'll get onto that soon. A few other jobs to finish off first. So I've processed the timber into 6 of these small floor tiles and then just tried a few different samples of varnish, oil and stain just to see if I can get the coloration that I'm looking for. Take a look at these. I've got the first one here, the raw, natural, unfinished oak. The next one to it is an oil. Don't like how orange that is. Then we've got 1 coat of varnish, 3 coats of varnish. There's a very subtle difference in colour, but not enough. So I put those to one side and then found myself some stain. Now you can see on the first sample here, this has got 1 coat of the Resine Deep Oak wood stain and then 1 coat of varnish over the top. And you can see the difference in coloration here. I'll bring that in close. Once the varnish goes on, it really brings out the depth of colour, but it's way too dark. Although that would look really good, I am concerned in such a small cabin, it's going to make the place look even smaller. So a little bit of experimenting, and this is the one that I'm currently favouring. You can see it's got a nice sheen to it, so it's not glossy, but it's not flat matte, and it's got some age look to it. And what I've done to create this one is given it a coat of the deep oak wood stain and then wiped it off. So wipe it on and wipe it off again, and it just starts to impregnate through the surface a little bit just to give it some coloration. And you can see that's pretty much what it looks like after 1 coat. And then give it a light sanding, particularly on the edges. Take a look at the beveled edges here, just to give it a little texture and a little sign of wear. And then put the varnish on top of that. Now that is a nice aged, slightly distressed, patinaed finish that I'd like to go for. So I'm thinking this could be the one. So I'm really pleased with how this timber turned out from this French oak barrel. You know, the timber is beautiful. It's got lovely grain, and with the right stain and varnish, I think it's going to look really good. And I've got enough to do the whole cabin in a parquet style floor. Now I'm not sure what pattern to go for yet. Maybe just a traditional herringbone, but maybe I can do something just a little bit more special. We'll see. That's as far as I can go with this project now, to let the rest of the timber dry out properly, ready for processing. But for now, that's all we've got time for. So thanks so much for watching. And remember, if you hit the subscribe button, it helps the channel out. And if you hit the notifications button, you will find out when the next video is published. That's it for today. Bye.